going on YouTube? So coming back today with my final NBA player rankings positional video. Tomorrow I'll be coming back with the top 50. But today, like I said, I wanted to do my centers video. So yesterday I did my power forwards. You have not checked that one out, go check that out. The link will be in the description below as well as in the outro. So I'll go ahead and start with my number 10, or not number 10, honorable mentions. So first thing I wanted to mention about the centers is it seems like it's a pretty deep position this year, especially around, I'd say, the 7 to 15 rankings if I did top 15. And it's, like I said, it'd be incredibly hard to narrow it down. There's just kind of a mishmash that's hard to sort out, especially if you wanted to consider doing something like this at this time of year. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So the first player I have is the center for the Los Angeles Clippers, and that is DeAndre Jordan. So DeAndre Jordan's been having, I don't know, DeAndre Jordan-esque season so far. Averaging about 12 points, 14 rebounds, 2 to 3 blocks. So like I said, a pretty Jordan-esque year, still shooting about 42% from the line, about 72% from the field, but that's just because a lot of his points are just right around the rim. There's been a big debate recently about talking about guys like DeAndre Jordan, Dwight Howard, Andre Drummond, some of the bigger guys that are extremely hard to stop in the paint that are getting to the free throw line like 8 to 10 times per game, and you just foul them because there's a good chance they will miss both free throws if not only making one. Alright, so move on to my number 2 on the 5 outside, or 3 outside, excuse me, is the rookie center for the, I believe it is 76ers, yes, and that is Jahlil Okafor. So I'm a big Jahlil Okafor fan. He was the, I believe, 3rd overall pick in this last draft. He's had a rough time over the last month or so. Had to put up a decent night against Brooklyn 2 nights ago. Actually, a pretty good night, having 22, 17, and then 3 blocks. But he's averaging around 17 points, 7 rebounds, 1 block. Like I said, he started off the season extremely well, but you also got to look at the team he's on. I think he's I think he has one of the brightest futures in the NBA of any center, though. So move on to my 3rd and final center on the honorable mentions list, and that is the Orlando Magic center, and that is Nikola Vucevic. So really burst onto the scene last year, in my opinion, and has been putting up solid numbers really ever since, averaging about 17 points per game, 1 block, 3 assists, 9 rebounds, and he's been pretty consistent all year, which is something the Magic have needed. They're still kind of in the playoff race in the East, but it seems like they're falling out more and more every day. So move on to the actual top 10 list, and my first player on the list is the center for the Houston Rockets, and that's Dwight Howard. So Dwight Howard might actually have most talent, or at least one of the top 3 most talented guys on this list, but he can't shoot free throws. He's been having trouble in Houston the last 2 years. He's averaging around 14 points per game, 12 rebounds, 2 blocks, 1 steal, and like I said, seems like his numbers get worse and worse every year. I mean, this is still a very talented guy, but yeah, it seems like he's regressing very fast in the NBA. So move on to my number 9 center. I've got a very underrated center for the Atlanta Hawks, and that's Al Horford. So Al Horford's averaging about 15 points, between 1 and 2 blocks, 3 assists, and then also 7 rebounds per game. He's been very efficient this year. It's been a little bit of an up-and-down season, though. He's one of the better free throw shooters for centers, though. He's only getting to the line about 2 or 3 times per game, but he's also shooting about 78% from the line, which is very good, especially for a center. Alright, so move on to my number 8 center, and I've got the Memphis Grizzlies' Marc Gasol. So, again, been an up-and-down year for Marc Gasol, guy that was signed to a pretty big contract extension this offseason. Numbers are a little bit down from last year, but nonetheless still averaging about 17 points, 1 to 2 blocks per game, 4 assists, and 7 rebounds. So by no stretch of the mind a bad season for Marc Gasol. but a guy coming into the season that I had ranked as probably my third or fourth best center in the NBA, so he has fallen a little bit. So move on to my number 7 center, and I've got the Brooklyn Nets, Brook Lopez. So Brook Lopez has been for a while now, when he's healthy, one of the best scoring centers in the NBA, and he's one of the few bright spots for the Nets this year, averaging about 2 blocks, 20 to 21 points per game, 8 to 9 rebounds, and also about 2 assists and 1 steal. So he's putting up very, very good stats this year, and for me, a guy that's really, when he's healthy, one of the best centers in the NBA. The problem is he's just not really been able to stay healthy over his career, but this year actually has changed a little bit. He's also another very good free throw shooter, shooting about 78% from the line. So move on to my number 6 center, and I've got the Philadelphia 76ers, Nerlens Noel. So Nerlens Noel could have easily qualified as a power forward. Probably should have put him there yesterday, since that's what he's been mainly playing for the Sixers. But this is a guy that's been extremely useful for the Sixers. One of the guys that gives Sixers fans hope for the future, along with Jahlil Okafor, Joel Embiid, and really what is one of the most deep front courts in the NBA when you think about it, talent and future-wise. And it's weird to think of it that way, but it's true. He's averaging around 2 steals, 2 blocks, 11 points, and 8 rebounds per game, also 2 assists. So not the most flashy stats in the world, but he's also been very efficient this year. Again, not the best free throw shooter, but he also shoots about 54% from the field, so he's been very good this year, in my opinion. So move on to my number 4 center, and I've got the Miami Heat's Chris Bosh. So Bosh is having a good year. Miami, again, another up-and-down team, averaging around 1 steal, 1 block, 19 points, 7 to 8 rebounds per game. He's been very consistent for the Heat this year, and I think that's a good thing for them to have. Obviously, a guy that has developed quite a bit of range over his career, shoots about 79% from the line this year, and definitely one of the centers that could stretch a lineup out a little bit. Bosh isn't a great defender, but he's also has a little bit of post-up moves, but he can really score from anywhere on the court, which is obviously a big thing to have for a center. Excuse me, that was number 5. I said that was number 4. Anyway, my number 4 is the Minnesota Timberwolves rookie Karl Anthony Towns. So Towns has been fantastic this year. Obviously a big bright spot for the Timberwolves. He's been extremely hot of late as well. He is averaging a double-double per game, about 17 points, 2 blocks. Holy crap, there's one that I completely left off this list. Alright, so excuse this. I'm gonna put a tie at number 3. Anyway, sorry. But yeah, I got Karl Anthony Towns at number 4. He's averaging about 17 points per game. Shooting about 85% from the line, of course a very good percentage. Shooting about 54% from the field as well, about 2 blocks and 2 assists per game as well. So, especially for a rookie, really lighting up the stat sheet this year, one of the most efficient centers in the NBA. So a guy that I just kind of, I guess the first one that I've really missed this year, a guy that's been extremely good of late in my opinion, and that is the Miami Heat's Hassan Whiteside. So my computer is slowing down a little bit here, but Hassan Whiteside has been a guy that I believe has been injured for quite a bit of the year, but when he has been healthy, he's been extremely, extremely good. He's a guy that's averaging right around 12 points per game, 11 rebounds, 4 blocks, and shooting about 55% from the line, about 62% from the field. For me, he's one of the few guys that I've seen get a triple-double with 10 blocks. He's had multiple games this year where he's had over 10 blocks, and it's insane to think about. For me, Hassan Whiteside is one of the better true centers in the NBA, and it is actually really fun to watch him. So, move on to the guy who I have him tied with. And like I said, I should have planned this out a little bit better, remembered Hassan Whiteside, but nonetheless, I've got the Utah Jazz's Stifle Tower, Rudy Gobert. So Gobert really burst on the scene last year as one of the best shot blockers in the NBA, still averaging right around 3 blocks per game. And again, been another guy that's having a very solid year. Not the best scorer, but nonetheless still putting up about 10, 11 points a game, 10 rebounds, 1 steal. And like I said, one of the best true shot blockers in the NBA, something that seemed like over the last few years was getting hard to find, but it seems like the big man's kind of made a return in these last 2 years, as there's actually quite a bit of depth in centers now. Alright, so move on to my number 2 center, and I've got the Detroit Pistons' Andre Drummond. So there's very few guys in the league that have better post moves than Andre Drummond. He's been getting fouled an extraordinary amount this year, and his free throw percentage is god-awful. He's shooting about 35% from the line this year. Nonetheless, he's still averaging around 2 steals, 2 blocks, 17 points per game, and about 15 rebounds. So he is still a monster on the boards. He still has extremely good post moves, but I mean, if he can improve from the line, then it's scary to think of how good he could be. It's really his biggest problem, because he's getting to the line about 8 times per game and only making about 3 of them. Alright, so move on to my number 1 center, and for me it's pretty clear cut this year. This is a guy who has just formed out his game, just rounded out his game so extremely well, and a guy that's actually the subject of quite a bit of trade talk, and that is the Sacramento Kings' DeMarcus Cousins. So again, DeMarcus Cousins is a guy that has been rumored to really go to quite a bit of teams this year. I don't know if he's actually going to end up getting traded. The Sacramento Kings are actually pretty much on the verge of being in the playoffs. They do have, in my opinion, enough talent to be in the playoffs. But DeMarcus Cousins' numbers are, in my opinion, pretty crazy this year. He's actually developed a three-point game, making about 1 or 2 3-pointers a game. Also shoots about 73% from the line, which is very good as well. He's averaging around 3 assists, 1 to 2 steals, 1 to 2 blocks, 27 points per game. For me, he is the clear-cut best center in the NBA right now, and also one of the top 5 or top 10 best players in the NBA this year. He is a guy that if he does get traded, the Kings will be able to command a lot for him. There's a lot of teams that would love to have a guy like that, a guy that can stretch the floor, like I said, really shoot from anywhere. He's, for me, kind of like a Chris Bosh on steroids. He's also a very good player in the paint. Good back to the basket scorer. Alright, so that concludes my final top 10 for the positional part of the rankings for my NBA player rankings. I'm not quite sure on what sport I'm going to do next. I still have 5 more to go. Said I would be doing college basketball, college football, and then the 4 major sports: NBA, NHL, NFL, and MLB. And one that I'm still excited to do, one that's been very fun so far. But like I said, if you haven't checked out the rest of the playlist yet, go check that out. The link will be in the description below. And yeah, that's pretty much it. See ya. What is going on, YouTube? So coming back with day 3 of my NBA player rankings for 2000.